With technology stocks leading the market to record high levels, it's no surprise that the recent IPOs from a couple of the high-profile unicorns have grabbed headlines. In this morning's U.S. Bank Economic 360, U.S. Bank Vice President and Senior Portfolio Manager Mike Denneman is with us to talk about how things have gone so far for the unicorn class of 17. Mike is with Business Courier editor Rob Dahlmeyer in the studio. Gentlemen.
Allison, thanks. Mike, thank you for being here.
Good morning.
I was always told, Alec, unicorns were not real, but you're here to tell me that's not true. Refresh my memory. What are unicorn companies?
Maybe in Silicon Valley they're not so mythical, right?
Right.
So, yeah, this is a term that's been used frequently over the last few years to describe this most recent generation of startup companies, primarily in technology. Most of them naturally not household names, although some of the largest certainly are. Names like Uber, Spotify, Pinterest, all of these would qualify as unicorns. And it's important to remember that these are not publicly traded companies. There's no stock for them. You can't buy them on the exchange. So for their capital, they require venture capitalists to infuse money. Right. And this is what makes them unique. This is what qualifies them as unicorns, is the valuation in dollar terms that is placed on them by these private investors. So to qualify as a unicorn, at a minimum, $1 billion. The largest ones, several $billion. So remember, these are startup companies, many of them not even profitable, and yet, at least on paper anyway, they have these monstrous price tags attached to them. And so it's been curious to see, okay, so on paper that's one thing, but when they bring that to market, can it pay off?
So you mentioned Uber and some other companies that a lot of us have heard of, but how about some new companies, maybe that new unicorn companies that have come on the market so far this year?
Sure.
Who are they?
So it would seem an opportune time if you were a unicorn to try and test the market. Remember, if you're a private company, the way you cash out, so to speak, is to sell shares of your business to the public. So if the market's at a record high, technology has been doing well, this would seem an opportune time to go for it. So there have been about a half dozen unicorns so far this year, although it's the household names, of course, that grab the headlines. And in that regard, there's been two primary headline-grabbing IPOs. We had back in March Snapchat, and then here just a few weeks ago it was Blue Apron.
Right, right. And so of this half dozen that have come on to become public this year, who's doing well so far?
Yeah, so it has been a really mixed bag so far this year. We've seen some of these unicorns who ended up coming to market at the lower end of their expected price range rather than at that higher end. We've seen some whose stock prices have actually dropped below the initial offering price. Wow. Once trading began, that's not encouraging either. But remember, all things are relative. So on one hand, you could say that these have been successful IPOs and that they've raised just mountains of cash by selling these shares to the public. On the other hand, though, those of us who remember the tech bubble can recall IPOs where the price just skyrocketed out of the gate, doubling and tripling. And so that's just not happening in this environment. So on one hand, successful IPOs for the unicorns, but then you could also probably say accurately that maybe the hype and the actuality aren't necessarily meshing.
Well, it'll definitely be something to watch. These kinds of companies get a lot of coverage. So thanks for being here, and we'll keep our eyes on especially some of the ones you just mentioned. Thank you.
Thanks.